Ty laughed uncontrollably as she walked in behind him and broke his thought pattern. I was thinking the same thing. We can get back to work now, he laughed. The two of them made an about face with the co-workers trailing cohesively, but on their way out, Dick noticed two babies were on the blanketed floor playing patty cake in the same room blonde Tony lay. When he peeked inside the room, a TV light was now on. Fuck, not again! Dick was outraged from entering another dream, but it was mainly because he thought him and blonde Tony in the top bunk was a sure thing. Instead, he turned his head and saw Red was now calling him from behind a steamy shower glass. Her tits pressed the glass the same way Tony's had, but she drew her finger around them, removing the steam so that Dick could see her areola. He began to walk closer to her to join her, but walked onto a basketball court and began playing 2-on-2 against a celebrity rapper and a childhood acquaintance named Talk. The ball went out of bounds and it was on Dick to inbound it. He grabbed it, then looked up for his partner, who happened to be the kid he met at the labor camp, whose name is Sean. He was running back and forth with his hands raised, waving Dick down for the pass. They tossed the ball back and forth, then Dick took a wild hook shot that surprisingly went in. Catch, motherfuckers! Talk checked the ball while Sean boxed the rapper out effectively to catch it when Dick passed it to him. Then two police squad vehicles swarmed onto the sidewalk with their doors open and sirens on. Yo, what the fuck? The rapper yelled. Shut the fuck up, one of the policemen crossed the artist's jaw, dropping him to his knees, then yanked him up by his forearms. Y'all always fucking with a slack, man, he continued. I said shut the fuck up. You, get over here. The cop gave a head nod to two of his partners to grab Talk, while the third grabbed Dick and held him pressed against the park gate. Dick panicked because he suddenly remembered he had multiple bags of cocaine in his pocket. What the fuck? I'm going to jail, he thought, because he forgot he was dreaming. But despite the officer going in his back pocket and finding the cocaine, he didn't announce it to his partners or put cuffs on Dick. Instead, he held him there gently enough for Dick to pull away and run if he wanted to. No one grabbed Sean, but the officer who grabbed Talk bent him over the trunk of his car and used it to place multiple plastic-wrapped crack rocks that came out of Talk's pocket onto it. Always fucking with a slack, right? Y'all ain't do nothing, right? Get your ass in the car, the police yelled while maneuvering Talk into the back seat. Y'all ain't even had no right to jump out on me, Talk pleaded. Yeah, shut the fuck up. The cop shoved Talk into the car while the other cops let Dick go, who felt uncomfortable from being spared. But before he could reach Sean to ask him if he knew they were dreaming, he was running up a hill holding Red's hand. She was topless and afraid, so Dick was tugging at her at top speed to get her away from the same woman who was in the backseat of the car him and Tony was in during the other dream. She was enraged and dressed in leggings and a sports bra, dripping sweat. Dick assumed she was cursing at Red because of the look on her face and the fact that she was raising a thick whip to lash Red with, which apparently she had already done before Dick realized he was dreaming because Red's breasts were already swole. They were red like ripe tomatoes and even bore green leaves around the edges of her areola. Dick found it to be slapstick, but got convinced it was very real as the whip made contact with Red's leaved nipples again. She almost fell to the ground while covering her breast with her forearm in agony. But Dick finally got her far enough up the hill to dodge the range of the whip. He lifted his head, then realized exactly where he was taking her based on the block they were on. They were on their way to Mama Love's house. The scenery faded prematurely, and he found himself in a room where he saw himself inside a bed, which felt like an empire apartment based on the vintage style of the interior and the sound of busy streets below. He was astral projected in third person, watching a completely naked version of himself laying side by side with Tony, who was mid-sentence trying to explain something to him. But because he was still settling in the projection, he couldn't make sense of it. It wasn't until he put his head near her feet and lay his feet near her head that Dick was able to hear her clearly. Why do you have to be so complex? I mean, seriously, she asked. Because, just watch. Put the blue dress on, I'm telling you, he said calmly but assured. Tony stood up wearing a white satin lingerie set that pushed her enormous boobs to the limit. After shoving past several white dresses in disappointment, she grabbed a V-cut sleeveless blue dress in the closet, then held it to her body. Perfect, Dick said while holding up a thumb, which made him laugh hysterically because he knew she thought he was insane. Chapter 5. A Plot for a Patsy. Columbia Capital Naval Base, 2007. Arquette slammed the manila folder onto the Admiral's desk with enthusiasm. His name is Benjamin Byron, has over 20 arrests since a juvenile, predominantly drug-related. Reached his peak with a short run from 1995 to 1997 during the crack cocaine epidemic. Then he graduated to designer drugs, would later on be known as the chemist, and was selling large quantities of shit but self-sabotaged before he could become a kingpin. Rumor is that after he was caught and sentenced to probation and parole, he was never the same. Began testing his own drugs, including hallucinogens, and even began experimenting on himself. You're saying his usage makes him susceptible, therefore a perfect Manchurian candidate? But who is his syndicate, Arquette? Right, I'm getting to that right now. Honestly, he had a tight circle that operated like a local gang. However, strangely, both rivaling gangs dominated and ran by slacks in the empire, have him amidst the top of their hierarchy presently. How can he be a leader in both rival gangs? That doesn't make any kind of sense, Agent. I said the same thing, sir, and we're thinking maybe this happened through cooperating informants, perhaps shaping that depiction for their own get-out-of-jail-free cards. Nonetheless, it's perfect because it's not like we're framing him. It naturally looks like his own kind championed him there, and for the record, there are real-life reports of this guy mingling with some of the gangsters from those gangs. Anything he's been arrested for? No, sir. Where is he now? 6 building on Bikers Island, set to be released on March 9th. We had a plant try to divert him from taking the jail's computer course to take carpentry instead, but it didn't work. What was he convicted for this time? And why are you mentioning computers? I'm not sure I follow you, Agent. He was arrested right here in Columbia Capital for multiple shootings, possession of narcotics, and was being investigated for a couple of murders at the time. But none of the cases had sufficient evidence. He beat the trial, so the judge gave him the max sentence for the drugs caught on his person. The Empire PD came to retrieve him after doing half the sentence here for a concurrent case he was fighting up there. And right, the computer class. 1 second. FBI agent Arquette momentarily stepped out of the office. So he's violent? What the fuck, Agent? Is he a shermhead or a calculating vigilante?
Put it this way, he's not the type of person you'd want to try up close. He's impressionable by nature, but a fish that has been hooked by the wrong fisherman too many times will learn discernment. The reason you don't want him knowing anything about computers is that the planet Uranus has a high rank in his spiritual DNA. Significantly high.
I'm sorry, and you are? Admiral Waters inquired. This is Elizabeth Navick, research specialist, High Council Witch, and advisor to the Secretary of State, Arquette replied as he stepped back into the office. Admiral Waters leaned back in his swivel chair and squinted his eye at the tall, voluptuous blonde Angloid. He muffled a disappointing grunt, but altered his attitude to save face because she obviously held some type of power in Columbia. So, it's true what they say about witches and sorcerers in the Pentagon, aiding political efforts and shaping reform with spells and crystal balls and stuff.
Yes, sir. We have even guided some of your men to victory over the battlefield.
Ma'am, have you ever seen a POW have his throat slit while hung upside down, with blood squirting out in the camera lens that some coward in a mask propped up to not only send to us, but to televise so his recruits can see what it takes to be initiated?
Well, thanks to Tree Bark, yes, sir, I have time and time again.
Waters leaned back in his chair again, this time smiling and rocking back and forth with his legs cocked wide. A chuckle of laughter began to build up. You sure are witty. Ain't she witty, Agent? I mean, golly, I can see you now modernizing that traditional Oval Office with those fierce rebuttals. Okay, so let me ask you, which war did you direct? Nam? Because I sure as fuck don't recall seeing any brooms flying across the battlefield in no wars where my comrades bled, goddammit. Enough already. Agent Arquette closed the office door, then asked Elizabeth, who was now grinning, to take a seat. Sir, Elizabeth is not here to map out war plans. He is here for one reason only, and that is to inform you on the spiritual potential of our target. What the fuck does that mean, Arquette?
Acts of God.
Elizabeth interrupted.
For fuck's sake, when does man ever take credit for their fuck-ups and say their plan didn't work? They didn't know best. When a plot gets derailed, no one mentions God, you know why? Because they know deep down they aren't in control of everything. And believe you me, I know a lot about control. But if I was even old enough to visit the White House during Nam, I would have told you that God said you will lose.
Waters didn't blink, but he felt they connected after Elizabeth defended her belief system. Her ability to turn off the charm and turn on diplomatic conviction was impressive and a testament that she was no pushover like he assumed. Knowing she grasped the most power in the room, she seized the moment and continued.
Now, as I was saying, learning technology will arm him with the same knowledge you are planning to use to destroy him, which can result in it backfiring. Now, I'm no anthropologist, nor do I claim to be. My specialty is calculating the odds, so can I do my job? It's obvious your cock is bigger than mine, Admiral.
The Admiral ignored her clapback, knowing he wasn't hip enough to make a dent in her with her own strategy of sarcasm, so took another approach. He's not into any of that bebop crap the clues are so heavily invested in? Can you use some voodoo to guide him into that?
I doubt it. I see your angle with how the music is a recipe for self-incriminating self-destruction, but according to our sources in the prison, he's been on such a narrow path that he's getting predictable. He's even snagged the job when he's outside already.
Waters' bottom lip hung in a pout as his eyes veered left to Agent Arquette. Well, Agent, what do you have to say? What are the local logistics on this man? Is he on parole? That would prevent him from leaving the state, right? And to what extent will that computer class teach? He will not be on parole. However, his resources will not exceed the point to encourage any travel whatsoever unless, of course, he gets into illegal activities again, which works in our favor. Elizabeth's company is actually the company that went into the jail and guided his hiring process. Minimum wage with the opportunity for wage increases are expected to keep him there, especially once Elizabeth gives him a good look. How can you be sure he'll be attracted to her enough to stay for a raise? Waters asked subtly, throwing a jab back at Elizabeth.
I just know,
Elizabeth said with an emotionless face.
The computer course is only an A+ certification.
Elizabeth continued.
The local logistics are also in our favor because of his housing situation, which can also be aided with coercion. The low income level will mandate him to housing programs which we are sure he'll choose, either the collected faction or the well-being society.
What's the difference? Water asked.
The well-being society gives you time to think because it puts no pressure on the resident to obtain more wealth. But the collected faction program has a time restraint, encouraging the resident to basically get rich in 5 years so that they no longer need the program. It's proven that slags predominantly go for the connected faction every time out of pride. None of them could be seen as broke. They will be made fun of and ostracized out of their race, peer group, and community.
Okay, let's get him in the faction then. I wish he'd get connected with some of his old drug-dealing friends, but oh well. Shit, why do we have to give him any kind of subsidy? Can't we stop that at the gate?
I'm afraid not, sir. It's best I tell you this now also, so nothing comes back as a shock to you. This guy has the most powerful 12th house I've ever read in a chart, meaning he can get aid from multiple assets, foreign included. It is in his birthright. These assets can even be assets we don't have ties with. What makes it more complex is these assets are bound to move in secrecy so tightly knit that he might not directly know any of them either.
Which makes them unable to identify each other in any court of law, Arquette added.
Exactly. Plus his sun in Mercury is in the 6th house, and his Saturn is in the 12th. Therefore he can see his enemies, even the hidden ones.
Please stop with the sun, moon, and stars stuff already. I don't understand that crap. Can't you witches do your magic to thwart this?